Hey everyone, welcome. This is Eric Rodebois, 5 Minutes with Eric, EPGD Attorneys at Law PA. I'm coming at you from Miami, Florida. I'm sure you guys know we've recently opened up a Washington, D.C. and a West Palm Beach office. And today is a real quick 5 minutes, and the question is very simple. If I've worked somewhere for a really long time and I need to quit for personal reasons, am I entitled to any severance? So this is a true story. A friend of mine, a friend of the family actually, had a stroke a couple years ago. The good news is she survived the stroke. She's pretty okay. The bad news is it really affected her eyesight and her attention span, and she's really struggling at work. Now, the company she's working for hasn't let her go, but she personally feels like she's finally ready in her life to take a different direction. And so she comes to me and says, Eric, I really need a severance so that I can have some time to get my life together and, think about things. And question number one, do I have a severance? And I'm going to give you a little more background. She happens to work for a very big, well-known international company, and she's working here in Miami, Florida. So under Florida law, you are not entitled to any sort of automatic benefit, pension, severance, etc., unless it's part of the contract you have with your job. So the teachers, as members of a teachers union, negotiate these types of benefits with their employer. Or maybe there's other types of benefits from other types of companies. So if you work for the government, that might be just one of the things that's included in your agreement with them. So I said, listen, the first thing is bad news. I don't think there's any rights under Florida law for you to have a private job. She goes, well, I've been working there since 2006. I'm like, that's great. But first of all, under the Florida law, just working somewhere doesn't entitle you to a severance or a pension. And let's just define something real quick. A severance typically means that when you leave a job, you earn a certain amount of time in weeks or months or maybe even years that you'll continue to be paid after leaving that job. So here's a common example. For every year you work at my company, you'll be entitled to 2 weeks paid severance when your employment terminates, as long as it is not terminated for cause. For cause would be something like I fire you because I catch you cheating or stealing or whatever. And if I fire you because I catch you cheating, then obviously I'm not going to pay you a severance. I'm not going to pay you anything. But I mean, I could imagine maybe a contract that guarantees your severance no matter what, but I could, why would you ever do that? So that's a severance. So I say to her, I don't think you're entitled to anything under the law. What about contracts? She goes, well, I don't think I signed anything. I'm like, okay, well, can you check? She goes, well, I think I signed a non-compete when I started working there in 2006. And I said, well, a lot of times a non-compete will actually include, as consideration for the non-compete, a certain amount of money. I was just looking at a non-compete for Carnival Cruise Lines for one of their executives, and sure enough, it said, for 6 months you can't compete, and we'll pay you for 6 months. Now that's not really a severance, that's more just like consideration for them buying a couple months of his life of not competing against them. She goes, well, I'm not sure I had anything. I'm gonna go, also, maybe an employment handbook, maybe a policies and procedure, like maybe in whatever company that is, it says that employees shall be entitled to a severance of whatever it is. But again, we're looking for a contract now. So I don't think there's anything under the law. So now I'm looking for a contract. And she goes, well, I, won't raise red flags if I ask them for my employment contracts? And I go, no. Every employee in America who has an employment contract is allowed to go to HR and say, hey, would you guys mind if I get a copy of anything I've signed for my records? Because maybe she doesn't remember what was in the non-compete. Or maybe they had her sign a contract, she didn't know about it. Or maybe in the employment handbook that she signed an acknowledgement for, it clearly says that she's entitled to X, Y, and Z. Okay, so what's the point of the story? The point of the story is if you want a severance, you need to negotiate it either at the beginning, which is the best time to negotiate. Oh, you want me to work for you? Fine, I want to negotiate a severance. If I work for you for 5 years, I want 5 weeks paid or 5 months paid or whatever it is you can negotiate. As long as I'm not being terminated for cause. Or you can negotiate it on the way out. Maybe there's a good reason. My firm has no reason to give people a severance, but a lot of times we'll offer it as consideration for them signing a settlement and release. I have a secretary who's been here for a long time. She wants to go on her separate way. I go, you know what? I'll pay you 1 month if you sign this document, which is a contract, which maybe waives her rights to, have a change of heart 6 months from now and decide to sue me for something. So anyways, I know it doesn't sound fair. If you want a severance, you want a pension, you should negotiate for it. If you're being asked to sign an employment contract or a non-compete, take it to a lawyer. That's your opportunity to make demands. Otherwise, I'll be seeing you later on in another 5 minutes with Eric. Thank you so much.